Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back. We are back in studio. I'm back from New York City, and we are here to talk about a very special movie, a movie that I called perhaps the best movie of the year so far. It's Battle Angel, Alita. We've got Emma Fyffe. We're hyped. Boom!
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
You're like, do I point? Do I?
Participate?
We never tell anyone about any of our weird things that we do.
What if we had just been like, and you're on?
Here we go. Ready to tell you all about this really great movie.
Oh, hype. I'm so happy to be back. What's up,
Yes.
everybody? Action Movie Anatomy. We're back in the studio. I got on an airplane this morning at 7 from New York.
Oh, sheesh.
I
You
landed
keep
2
saying
hours
you're
ago.
back
Yeah.
and we're back like 15 times, and I'm like, I've just been here.
Now let me ask you,
I've been hanging out.
Let me ask you, did you fly into Burbank or into LAX?
In LAX.
Whew, that's a journey.
It was a good one. I watched the second half of A Simple Favor because I'd watched the first half
yes.
last week. That movie's low-key actually really good.
What? I don't even know it.
It's the Paul Feig movie with
Yeah.
Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick.
really?
That
Yep.
movie that like
Yeah.
you and I were
Surprisingly good.
probably like never gonna watch this.
Yeah.
And then Bibiani loves it, so that I was like, and it's really good.
Yeah.
Really?
Shocked. Yeah.
'Cause
Anyway,
you were in New York this morning at what time, and what time did you leave?
my flight left at 7.
So 4 a.m. our time.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Jeez.
It was
You're a champion.
it was a long one. It was a
I
long
slept
one.
till 10.
Yeah. Good for you. Guys, it's Action Movie Anatomy. We're talking Battle Angel Alita. Or is it?
It's
Alita?
Alita,
Alita
Battle Angel.
The comic book.
Yeah,
Battle
it's
Angel Alita.
the manga is Battle
embarrassed
Angel
us.
Alita.
In canon, it's actually no, we're here to talk about this sweet movie. We got a special guest, Emma Fyffe.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this movie because I was shocked and delighted by how much I enjoyed it.
We were too. I think we both walked out of there. We were just like, holy shit.
I feel
That
like
was
if
amazing.
we were writing an
Yeah.
article right now, the part of the page where like blown up with quotes would be shocked and delighted at how much they enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yes,
'Cause it's-
exactly.
And I think anybody who looked at the page would be like, that's about all I need to read because that's exactly how I feel, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get into it as we move through the show, but the massive difference between top critics and audience reviews is insane. We've never had this big of a gap, I don't think.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys. We're going to get to that. It's literally the biggest gap we've ever seen on the show. So coming up today on the show, we have a ton of cool things we're going to be talking about. Buying or selling the Alita franchise. Robert Rodriguez, overly sieged, underly sieged, properly sieged, answering some of your AMA questions. It's a big show. First and foremost, big shout out to our patrons. Philip Hunt, could be Felipe, I'm going to say Philip, and Joshua Heath.
Boom. It's a salute from us.
We salute you.
Emma? There, there she is.
We cover action movies on the show. We
do.
Those action movies here are 4 basic rules. Rule number 1, the hero always plays by their own rules. In the end, she absolutely does.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as she starts to realize her power.
Yeah, when she's punching and kicking with vigor.
Oh yeah, and I think even more so than in the source material, they really like hone in on this idea of her being her own person.
Something somebody said to me last night was like, in the comic book, she stays relatively naive throughout, and the choice they made in this is that they kind of make her evolve to become like kind of a smarter killer, like in charge. They don't just like make her kind of naive the whole story, which I think is a smart decision because
I do too.
It would have been bad if she continued to be like the ooh and then like punch, like that wouldn't have worked if
Yeah,
she had
yeah.
done that the whole movie.
Yeah.
Rule number 2: the hero and the villain are always the smartest people, beings, things, dinosaurs, what have you in the room. I think definitely. I mean, in the end, she is, and so is Edward Norton's mole.
Yes. There you go. Nice. This is a good one.
You like that?
That's going to be your best moment today.
I don't know. I might drop hella again. We'll see.
You're on a roll.
Rule number 3: the movie is driven by police, military, political, or mercenary figure. She's military.
Wait, yeah, they are.
I was gonna say that's really honestly, you could argue any one of those for this film because you have the hunter warriors replacing the police.
Yeah.
You have the political system of Zalem up above.
Yeah.
And the sort of military presence of the like big guardian robot things that I'm totally blanking on the name
Sentinels?
of. Sentinels, exactly.
Yeah.
That I was
Well,
like, it'll come back to me.
And then also she was in the
Yeah, the
military.
military.
Like before.
Yeah.
She could kind of be any one of them.
Yeah.
Except for an MTA operator in the Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. Rule number 4: the
Not
movie
be that.
contains a minimum of 1 explosion, bunch of explosions.
Yeah,
Definitely.
tons of explosions.
It's produced by James Cameron, guys.
Yeah.
He probably like exploded something writing some of the script.
Yeah.
Gotta do this.
So those are the rules of Action Movie Anatomy. First and foremost, where can the folks find you you, Emma Fyffe, if they want to follow along with your exploits?
Oh, well, I am all over the internet wherever Emma Fyffes are sold at my name, Emma Fyffe, EMMAFYFFE. That is all F's as in Frank for those who are listening and not watching.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, you guys can find me at Andrew Guy. Oh, sorry. What was that?
I was going to say, those who are watching, I assume there's like a lower third sort of situation. So
I hope so.
Those of you on audio, you're going to have to just remember everything we're saying.
Yes.
And my name is Ben Bateman. You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media. But more important than my name is the fact that Andrew and myself have announced something really exciting this last week. There's so many things I want to talk about this. And for the full version of this, stay tuned for the end of the show. I think we'll probably go into some shout-outs, some thank yous. But just quickly, the brand name Action Industries, does that mean anything to you, Andrew?
Oh, it sure does. We've got a team of amazing individuals working for us. We're basically trying to next level the show. We've been doing it for a very long time. Team Action kind of took off in the Schmoedown. As Emma knows, that place is amazing. The fans there are so interactive, and it kind of gave us the idea to start this new venture. So Action Industries is something that's growing. Probably once we get into April, you guys will really see that in its full upright position, if you will.
And I think to build on what you just said, working for us, I think really more completely because of how collaborative it is. It's more like working with us. We're all we're kind of taking this whole idea, and right now there's so many different arms that we want to kind of reach out and make bigger. We'll talk about some of the specific individuals that are helping us, but there's going to be some big stuff coming. So Action Industries, it's a brand name to remember, and it was launched and birthed here in this studio originally
4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into Battle Angel Alita, or Alita Battle Angel, as apparently it's called. We're not going to watch the trailer because you can't watch trailers anymore because YouTube copyrights things.
Yeah, they've been really kind of cracking down. So instead of watching the trailer, we're just going to get right into our thesis statement.
Thesis statement is your biggest, boldest thought about this film. It's that thing that if this movie comes up at a party, you're like, this is what I think about this movie. You say it, you believe it, and then you drop the mic, and that's it. And you're that cool guy at the party that drops the mic.
Like that guy keeps coming up to me and talking about Alita Battle Angel, and I want him to leave me alone.
How did he get in here? And so we're going to each share. It should, kind of be almost like hyperbolic, right? The best this, the only this, the first this. It should never just be, my favorite part of Battle Angel is when she punches.
I'm going to hop in first because I think I know the least about this in general. I'm just like Joe, I'm going to go see a movie and Alita looks fun and I had a really great time.
I drove stars.
Yeah, I drove stars. I knew nothing about the subject material. I hadn't read any of it, but I did know that it came from a manga. So that being said, never have I been more excited to see a main character's true abilities in a film. And I'd say maybe the last time I'd thought about this was like maybe in The Matrix, when you're like kind of watching Neo, but then
I got a little bit of that first time watching The Matrix vibe from a lot of the fights in this, and in a really good way.
Because you have no idea how powerful she is, and you start to see moments of it, and you're like, holy shit.
When Morpheus is like, he's starting to believe, you're like getting a little bit of that feel.
Totally. And like when she finally puts on the suit, like when he finally puts on the glasses for the first time, and like he is.
Oh, when she gets the berserker body.
Yes, it's so cool, and the amount of power that comes from what she does, and I love that it's just her body and the way that she uses what I can't remember the exact verbiage they use, but it's something about the momentum and the force in which they like use parts of their body. It's stronger, like it's the training that they learned, and I just love that. So for me, I haven't been that excited to see what a main character could actually do in a movie since I think maybe The Matrix, but probably ever.
It's like that and Bourne are like the ones where you're like, you can remember, but that's always such a good reveal, the hint, and then.
And also, since we know that where it is coming from, in the world of anime and manga, there's endless possibilities. So I had no idea how powerful she was going to be, Yeah. So that's mine.
Definitely.
Emma, what you got?
Mine is again being somebody that is very deeply entrenched in the world of anime and manga. My thesis statement is top 3 most successful, and I don't mean most successful in terms of box office, because it's still leaving a little bit desired right now, but most successful in terms of adaptation of a Japanese property by Westerners ever.
Yeah.
So top 3 adaptation of a Japanese property by Westerners.
Yeah, I was going to say top 3 most successful Western adaptations of a Japanese property.
Yeah, which is it actually turns out there's a ton of
oh, absolutely,
because even everything like Edge of Tomorrow is one of those. Like there's like a lot of these that and actually that's a pretty interesting comparison now that I think about it. That's probably similar. Edge of Tomorrow, when you saw the trailers, well actually the trailer was amazing in that movie, but most people I feel like saw like the billboards and were like, this movie's gonna be terrible, what is this? Same kind of deal. You walked out of it like, that movie was awesome.
And it's so, okay, so to speak a little bit more on the subject material, because I know both of you guys are familiar with it, you've read it, and you were both, obviously, while we're here, we love the movie. There's so many people that know it very well, and they were so disappointed by it. But it sounded like they did a really good job of kind of portraying her and kind of telling the story and even the love story. And
there's an era with like manga, anime, adaptations, comic books, probably somewhere around the turn of the century. That's like, and that's when I was reading them, where it became very popular. It was very en vogue. There was like, this Neon Genesis Evangelion, Trigun, stuff like that. And this was one of the main ones people talked about. I think there was like 7 or 8 books at the time
of the manga. Yeah, I think you're right.
And I read them all, and it's been so long now, I don't remember that much about them, but I did read them all, and I loved them all, and there's moments in this movie that are taken straight off the page, and a lot of the moments that, for whatever reason, had always stuck with me from the manga, they actually translated exactly into this, and they were some of the strongest moments.
I totally agree. I mean, it's the thing of like her and Hugo in this movie. His name is translated different ways. Ultimately, it's the same name.
Yeah.
Like with the scene of them looking up at Zalem, and then certainly towards the end of the film with him like climbing up the pipeway.
I remember that so vividly.
And the scene where he's falling and she's holding, like, that is straight out of the manga, and that's in the OVA as well. And I think that for me, what this movie does incredibly well is the thing that all of my favorite live action Japanese adaptations of manga or of anime do extremely well, which is, like, for example, one of my favorite live action adaptations, it's a series, it's not a film, but it's the live action version of Sailor Moon. It's so good. The special effects are terrible. It's real cheesy, but once you get over that, what it does is it takes the source material, and yes, it changes things, but in a way that shifts the focus to be the relationship between the characters, which is exactly what this film did.
Which is what you need in film.
I loved it. Yeah.
2 comments. One, I agree with you. 2, Andrew, how much money would you have to make right now to sing every word of the Sailor Moon theme song? A, do you know all the words?
I don't know all the words, but I do remember watching it with my good friend Kevin Shintaku every day after school.
I was just thinking about, actually, if you had asked me that question, I think I could get close, but I'll bet you I'd miss a few.
I bet you could probably do it. Would you like to?
Tuxedo Mask? There were some good characters there.
Okay, what's your thesis? Yeah. We're moving along. I do not want you to sing Sailor Moon.
Yeah, okay.
I really do.
We do another show called The Action Guys. Tune into that show. My thesis is going to be, this is the most surprising science fiction movie theater experience I've ever had. And I think, I was trying to define, is that a strong enough thesis? And I think it is, because first of all, science fiction films in general, marketing can be really hard. It's one of the genres that Hollywood struggles to make us interested in. And you'll watch something take like A Ghost in a Shell, which is a great example of this not working at all.
Yes.
I didn't see it, but I've heard the movie was so it didn't have any of the buzz that this movie has, where half the people that are seeing this movie is like, it's so above average, you have to see it.
Yeah.
Everybody at Ghost in the Shell was just sort of it's fine. You just don't really need to watch it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Annihilation when I said that before the show.
Yeah.
I think out of Annihilation, even though I wasn't sure if it was going to be quality, I got enough of what I wanted out of that movie that it felt close to what I expected. I literally went into this movie thinking I've been hearing about this for years. This got delayed. Yeah. It's produced by Cameron, but it had so many similarities kind of in spirit to Mortal Engines. Again, a giant director's name attached. He didn't actually direct it. This huge epic thing that had been delayed, that seemingly when the trailer first dropped kind of felt like it almost came out of nowhere, even though we knew it existed.
Yeah.
And it just worked. I don't know. I walked out of it just thinking to myself, I would recommend that movie. That movie was totally awesome.
Yeah. I loved it, but I get it. I mean, my mom and her significant other went and watched it, and he was like, "This cartoon is just kind of weird," and my mom absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
and it's just, I get it. It doesn't speak to everyone, but I still, as we move through the show, I still don't understand the conversations we're going to have later.
My parents are both big sci-fi fans, and they really enjoyed it.
It's beautifully done, and
I agree with you, Ben, on the surprising statement, because I think that obviously this movie was announced a long time ago, back in 2003. I think was as early as the conversations were happening.
Same time Ghost in the Shell got announced.
And it took forever for it to actually come to fruition. And so obviously it was on my radar for a long time. And then I think when I started to see the marketing for it, I was so off-put by how Rosa Salazar looked in the movie. I was like, why are they doing that? But in the film, it works.
What a weird choice, right?
It's
like,
Okay,
so
yeah. So that was
strange.
another thing I was going to ask. This is great because I'm just going to ask you guys questions. Does she just look like everyone else in the comic?
She's a manga character. They all have giant eyes like that.
Right, but I mean, like in the sense, like she doesn't look like a different world or like a different being.
No,
like she
she's
does in the
very
movie.
tiny.
Right,
she's very tiny. But other than that, I never interpreted it that way. Anyhow,
Well, because the idea is that these people are supposed to look exactly like Hugo can immediately tell that he can't immediately tell until she does something that she is like cyborg because they look so.
But the thing is that I think they don't necessarily show super well in the trailer is the fact that there's kind of a big representation in terms of what people look like in this world in Iron City, where so many people are like 90% cyborg.
Right. And that's the interesting thing, right? Is like you see somebody who's got like a crazy, weapon for an arm or something. It's like, who's to say her eyes didn't just get enlarged? Like, I don't know. Like the people look kind of weird. So I think that's why, but from a marketing perspective, the choice to make that way had to have been somebody early on had to insist on it. And I think so much of the success of this movie, really, you have to just credit to Rosa Salazar, because if she hadn't been as endearing as she was, this movie just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, she was outstanding.
She was so perfectly like awkward and like not comfortable in her own skin, but trying to figure out who she was.
She's actually like, I think she's my age. I think she's in her early 30s. But she plays this character who, she's a total badass. But at the end of the day, she's a teenage girl.
Yes,
and she's an incredibly realistic portrayal of a teenage girl, even though like she can destroy anyone or anything.
Which is what's so
interesting.
amazing about her, right? Because she's this killing machine on one side, but then on the other side of it, she's like, I'll give you my heart.
Yeah.
And it's like, no! Like everyone in the theater was like, don't give that away!
But it's so accurate. I'm sure it's the same for teenage boys. That like the amount that you feel things in such a short amount of time. Because and there's that conversation that she has with Dr. Ito early on, where he's basically like, you've got a brain of a normal, if you can call any teenage girl normal, teenage brain.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting. So, guys, next up on the show, we have Fist Pump Moment. This is the moments of the half the movie. You kind of look around, you're like, are you seeing this right now? This is so good! Yeah. Sometimes, if Drew and I are actually lucky enough to see the film in the theater together anymore, it's the look over actual one of these. And that's always the best. But, you call your buddy on the phone, you're like, you got to turn this movie on. This movie had some real good ones.
There was numerous ones. Let's let Emma go first. What was your moment?
Mine was that first fight she has when she discovers that Dr. Ito is a hunter warrior and he gets set up for the trap in the alleyway.
I was so worried that he was going to be a bad guy.
Yeah,
I was so happy he wasn't.
And that's another thing that I thought the movie did really well. Like, actually, in some ways, better than the manga, because it happens so much faster in the manga that they get to, he's a hunter warrior.
You didn't get like,
and I love the way they built up the suspense in the movie of like, is he a bad guy? I knew he wasn't, but I thought they did such a good job with that. No, it's totally that fight in the alleyway where she first faces off against Gruishka and the other two cyborgs that are there. Because again, like, it was straight out of a manga. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like the girl like jumping up on the wall and having that like spider moment and revealing her body. It was completely ridiculous, but for me, it just worked.
Yeah.
It worked in the context of the world that they had built, and it was just great to finally see Alita really get to kick ass.
I agree. So I think my fist pump moment is it's the moment when she's realizing that she knows all the moves.
Oh, the Panderknast.
And she's in the mirror doing all the...
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I was just like, this movie's about to get so sweet.
Yeah.
It just was so exciting. And there's so many others in this movie, honestly. The action was pretty top-notch. People don't watch this show, I think, necessarily as much as you'd expect for us to be like actually action experts.
Yeah.
Because we'll cover everything from like sci-fi to like dramas. Like, we also just don't focus on the action that much. Often the old movies we cover, the action's aged really badly. So it's about the moments between the action that sell it. But this movie truly, honestly, works mostly because the action's so badass.
Oh, for sure. Even from the first... What's the game called again?
Motorball?
Motorball.
Yeah.
Even from the first time she plays Motorball in like a little park, you're like, oh, she's about to destroy this dude.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And she plays against the kid from Love, Simon, and also Bumblebee, who's in everything. Right?
Yes,
everything.
Literally in everything.
Good on him, man. He must be so happy. For me, my fist pump, well, I think I just got to go with "Fuck Your Mercy."
Which is like hard because I'm sure we've all considered that as a favorite line. Or
Right.
A fist bump,
Yes.
It's just so good, but I think we all knew at that moment when she was basically just down to nothing. You're like, she's still gonna win this fight.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
She's
I don't
on
know
the
how
one
she's
hand.
gonna
Yeah.
do it, and she lands on the one hand. You're like,
Yeah,
it's coming.
I liked how like acrobatic her fighting style
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
The other thing I absolutely loved was from the moment that you saw, and forgive me with all the names. What's the bad hunter killer's name that is going after Hugo?
The guy with the sword.
Zapan?
Yeah, Zapan. When she's like fighting, well, first of all, when she's fighting everyone in the bar, which is awesome.
No, that scene was incredible.
So
Yeah.
badass.
Incredible.
But when he busts out the sword, and you're like, "That's her sword."
Yeah.
You need to give her her sword
yeah,
back.
the damage blade.
Yes.
Oh, and her finally getting it from him was
it's
so
so
satisfying.
When she cuts his face off. What a good moment.
Yes.
Ed Skrein was a great
Oh,
performance.
him and Jackie Earl Haley were amazing.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, Ed Skrein was such a good choice for that
Yes.
part of
Yeah.
like the kind of self-obsessed pretty boy. Like, oh, it was so good.
I'm pretty sure like 12 years ago that would have been Guy Pearce. Almost
Sure.
positively.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
like the punch me face is like a
yeah, oh,
pretty
he's
classic.
so punchable.
Yeah.
Oh, he is. Yeah, and then when she kicks the sword into the wall,
Yeah.
and it like goes like 2 feet into the wall, you're like, oh my god, when is she gonna get it? Yep,
Yeah,
that's
it
my
was
fist
sweet.
pump.
I mean, yeah, the movie hit a lot of beats. Like the funny part about action movies is that even though like this movie has great character building, you know, action movies are pretty formulaic in the beats they have to hit. Like
Yeah.
when you want to make a character like her work, you have to pace it out so that when
Yeah.
she does get the sword, it's a big reveal. When she gets her powers, it's a big reveal. Her final battle, it all has to work. And like this movie just managed to hit enough of the beats that kept me super engaged the whole time.
And what's great about it too is that since she is so kind of indestructible, you have people like Zapan going after people that's not her. You know, like things that she can't protect. Like she can't protect. Hugo's not indestructible. Ito's not indestructible. So I like that instead of it just always being like the troubles following Alita, it's like people around her because she does seem
Yeah.
indestructible. You know,
Sure.
so it's nice to. I like that. I think it added suspense and drama to the
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, so continue to move through the show, guys. Those are going to be our fist pump moments. Share yours in the chat. Oh wow, there's some good ones in here actually. Let's share a couple fist pump
Oh
moments.
yeah, I want to hear.
Let's see. We've got Xanathros says bar scene for sure.
Oh.
Paul Denuza, one of his here. I got Paul and Richard to share these. When she learned that all the motorballers are against her and trying to kill her, and she's just like, "All right, let's do
yes,
this."
that was dope.
She
When
just,
she
like,
just started
looks.
taking them out.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah. Richard says a fist bump when Alita goes in to save the dog from the mech. It's the first time we see her take her battle stance, and it's
Oh yeah,
Hella sweet, he
It
says.
is hella sweet.
Yeah.
Dog, the poor dog.
I know.
That was-
The dog is also straight out of the manga.
Oh, is
like
it?
the dog is in the manga.
Barely remember that.
Yeah, and it's definitely in the OVA because I just rewatched it. So yeah.
That's horrible. And then the last one here from Belford, the look on Mahershala Ali's face when she finally kills Gruishka, which I love that she just cuts him in half.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so good. All right, so moving on through the show, we're going to get into star profiles. I didn't even know who Rosa Salazar was.
Nor did I.
I'll be honest. I was completely ignorant to who she is. She is a big-time TV actress. She's been a recurring substantial character on shows such as American Horror Story, Parenthood.
Yeah, I remember it from Parenthood.
Yeah, I didn't ever check that out, but I heard good things. Man Seeking Woman, and she was also a big part of the College Humor Originals series, which she was on for a couple years. And then she went and joined the Maze Runner series, which she's been a part of that entire series.
Maze Runner: The Death Cure, the very first film I ever reviewed officially for Nerds and Suits when I launched it last year. I saw that in a theater in a special screening.
And what'd you think of it?
Oh, it was lovely. I watched the first and second Maze Runner films in anticipation of that
Yes.
review.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't remember her in this movie though.
I'm pretty medium on the franchise as a whole.
Yeah. And pretty medium on Maze Runner too.
Yeah. The Kindergarten Teacher in 2018, and of course, the Netflix phenomenon Bird Box, which I still haven't watched.
You know, that brings to mind a question I have for you guys as people who are in the movie space, but also who interact with the Schmodown audience, you know, where we kind of clearly have to define in our minds
She got killed 5 minutes
Oh,
into
yeah.
American Horror Story, apparently.
what
Yes.
is what is a real movie and what's not. And I think something that's really interesting to me is as Netflix kind of rolls more and more into these original movies, at what point are these Netflix movies, these Netflix originals with major actors in them, going to start to feel like they, even if they don't have a theatrical release, they're like essential. Like you have to have
Yeah.
seen them, otherwise you've missed something. And to this point, like Bird Box is closed
yeah.
for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so's Roma.
Yeah,
Roma's going to be the
totally.
biggest.
Yeah, it is. It's a really interesting conversation, and obviously, coming out of Sundance this year, you have these companies like Netflix putting these huge bids on these films, like the Ted Bundy biopic.
Right.
Like after the success of the Ted Bundy tapes, the docuseries that Netflix did, they paid a ton of money to get the licensing rights.
You're talking about the Zac Efron
Yeah, the Zac Efron one.
Vial or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
extremely,
17
but
million or something?
and shockingly,
Yeah.
Yep. So it is really interesting to see sort of the direction that these things are gonna go.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if at a certain point, for the sake of like Drew and I were talking a little bit about this actually, the MCU and Pixar kind of is just two piece, like I guess like brands you would say, that took an already established piece of something and really made it like blue chip. Like Pixar's blue chip, right? MCU's blue chip. At a certain point, is Netflix going to sort of be that thing where like this series of 50 Netflix original films, these are this blue chip run, this golden age of Netflix original content where they were just buying the best stuff. And I wonder.
What's fascinating about Netflix is there's so much out there, and there's still a lot of bad, like really bad
Yeah,
Netflix
for
originals.
sure.
But I think because the quantity is so high, and that they still have these things like Roma, like Bird Box, like Bandersnatch, for instance, that people are just want to pay attention to. I don't think it actually matters that they have bad entities.
Yeah.
They can just keep doing it. It doesn't cost.
Because it's like any studio releases some bad movies and some good movies.
Yeah.
So and I think also with Netflix, they're starting at such a Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all of them are starting at this huge sort of advantage of they've already produced really good original television series.
Yeah.
So I think people go into it expecting like, oh, well, maybe this Netflix movie is actually going to be good.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you think so? Like moving it forward, like next year, since Roma's kind of the first example, because Roma was only released on Netflix, right? And then it got
had
theatrical.
a limited theatrical release.
Did it get theatrical after or before?
I think concurrently.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Interesting.
things where currently the rules are you have to have it released in a certain number of theaters to be eligible.
So what happens if, let's say, like next year a movie comes out, or like let's say a movie came out on Netflix like today that kind of was like under the radar, but in like 2 months people start losing their shit, and then in 6 months they're like, we need this to be in theaters so that we can have it looked at for next year's Academy Awards.
So then distribution starts to be a thing where Netflix probably has to. I mean, that's the thing. Is like we're all pretty aware of this business. The paradigm is shifting, and so that
definitely is.
I don't want to go
crazy.
too far down this now, just because we want to focus here. But as far as the conversation of that like MCU versus Pixar, we're going to be talking about that a little bit on The Action Guys. Stay tuned for that on Friday over on Collider Podcasts. But
especially because this movie you need to see on the biggest screen you can possibly see it on.
I totally agree.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was one of my favorite 3D experiences. Again,
I know,
of course,
and I'm
James
not.
Cameron.
I'm like not that
Hate
into
it.
3D, but this movie was incredible in 3D.
Yeah, I think I even said in my review that you need to see this in 3D,
Yeah.
and I hate 3D. So going back to Christoph Waltz,
Yes.
or I mean the characters in this movie. So Christoph Waltz, again, a lot of people were really happy to see him playing a character that wasn't a villain or wasn't like a super quirky, weird. He was just like a character. He was like a great dad character. So. The last 3 movies he's been in, he was in The Legend of Tarzan, which I actually didn't see. I heard it was okay.
It was all right.
It was all right?
Yeah.
Tulip Fever, and then Downsizing, which I heard is kind of like Alexander Payne's like beginning of the end, maybe. That's him,
in terms of his career.
Yeah, just like his writing in general. Like I heard it was like a great idea, but then it kind of fell flat.
I didn't see any of them, honestly. Weirdly enough, I missed Tarzan and Downsizing. They both felt like movies I should have watched.
Yeah, so that's enough on these guys. We know a lot about them. Rosa Salazar is definitely the standout performance in this movie. She was incredible.
Which is not to take away from Christoph Waltz as Dr. Ito. He was great.
Yeah,
but,
he's pleasing.
Yeah, and I mean, he was great. Jennifer Connelly was great. Mahershala Ali just can basically do no wrong. It seems
Edward
so far.
Norton's Mole was really good.
Mahershala has just been killing it. He's been in everything.
I have to say, Mahershala plays a great bad guy.
He does.
He's sweet.
He's
He's
a
a
very
great
good bad
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so continue. Let's go through a little bit of the production development here.
We can kind of skip over Cameron. I feel like everyone knows
At this
everything
point,
about him.
Who James Cameron is.
Yeah, we've talked about him a million times
Talked
as
about
well.
him last week on Avatar.
Of
Yes,
course.
we did. A couple things that are more interesting here. So, Leida Kalogridis, I'm sorry if you're watching. I butchered your name.
Patreon names, that is.
Yeah,
Yes, it
exactly.
is.
So she is she's just a writer that's kind of been around for the last like 15 years. She did Alexander, she did The Night Watch, she did Pathfinder in 2007, and Shutter Island, which I think was pretty interesting. Scorsese's Shutter Island. She was also an executive producer on Birds of Prey and Bionic Woman on TV. She co-wrote the screenplay for Terminator Genesis, which I didn't hate that movie as much as a lot of people did. And of course, this and Altered Carbon are two things she's also been involved with. Yukito Kishiro is the original writer, which I think is so amazing about him is he has like the Paul Thomas Anderson effect. So he was born in '67 and he was raised in Chiba, which I actually visited when I was in Tokyo and I loved it. But as a teenager, he was majorly influenced by mecha anime like Armored Trooper Voltoms and Mobile Suit Gundam, which I loved watching that show on Cartoon Network. All the
You
iterations
watched
of it.
all the ones. Gundam Wing.
Wasn't there? Yeah, I watched all of them.
Team.
Yes.
What else did they show on there? I think Double Zero.
Yep.
I like Gundam a
Yeah,
lot.
me and Kevin Shintaku, once again, my boy. But what was so cool is he started his career at 17 with Space Oddity, his debut manga, which was in the weekly Shonen Sunday. I don't know if that was like
It's a publication.
Yeah.
I mean, in Japan, basically, there's tons of publications that publish like one chapter of manga every single week.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so he got in there when he was 17, and then he wrote Alita, or Battle Angel Alita, when he was 23. So I can't even imagine writing this 7 years ago. So before we skip on to Robert Rodriguez, is there anything that you guys want to share about the subject material that you feel like anyone needs to know, or is there anything that like didn't work for you in the movie that they missed, or is there things that they did differently in the movie that you think worked better than in there?
I think, well, the most interesting parts to me about the adaptation of this is that like we're in this moment right now where Western culture taking adaptations from, say, China or Japan, it's kind of at an all-time high, right? You look at something like The Meg and how much of the production that went into that movie that was foreign. And the idea is that or Pacific Rim Uprising, right? You're marketing these movies overseas largely. The whole point is that you're going to make a lot of money in China, you're going to make a lot of money in Japan. And so it feels like right now is the moment to take these adaptations, make them kind of friendly for overseas, but in America, and they're going to make a lot of their money back. And I think this movie working is a little bit of a precursor to something we're probably going to see more of, which is I don't think that these studios are going to be as afraid to take a chance on these adaptations as they used to be. Seeing a Neon Genesis Evangelion produced in America, possibly as a 3-movie or a 5-movie series, wouldn't surprise me.
No, it wouldn't surprise me either. I think, too, obviously, like I was saying, that I think that this was really successful for me in the way that it kind of adapted some of the characters' relationships. So the whole storyline of Dr. Ito and Shirin having been previously married and had a child, that's all made up for this movie.
Oh, really?
Yes,
okay,
it is.
cool, interesting.
And so
I
obviously,
actually kind of like that.
And that's the thing is I liked it too. There are people that can't get away from the source material that'll be like, that's not right, and they didn't need to add that. And I'm sort of the they didn't need to add it opinion, but I thought it worked really well because again, they were just giving people a more of an emotional drive and motivation in a short period of time because you're working with a film. Overall, I really liked actually that Sharon was sort of less malicious than she is in the OVA. In the OVA, she's like very evil.
Yeah.
But I mean, has the same exact ending of she has a change of heart. She helps Alita do the surgery, or Gally do the surgery to put the heart in Yugo so that he is able to live long enough to get a cyborg body.
I love that.
But yeah, that's straight out of the source material. So it's like, it was interesting that they made her more sympathetic. I felt early on, like she seemed more aloof in the movie, and like in the OVA, she's like very aggressive.
I think it actually worked better because I think if she was too cardboard, like bad girl, bad woman, it wouldn't have really worked.
Yeah,
like,
totally. And I absolutely loved every choice with Vector in this. The character that Mahershala Ali plays he was so much more compelling as a villain to me than he is in the source material because, again, with the source material you've got a longer stretched out period of time. So like characters, there are some characters that are in the movie that are from like later parts in the story, but they kind of mishmashed it together. I thought in a way that worked well and was fairly cohesive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really liked that Vector was less of a mustache twirling villain is not really the right way to describe him.
I get what you're saying though, because he has moments of compassion in the movie, and he has moments of kind of like where you almost like when he talks about being a king down here as opposed to a slave up there or whatever. It's like you're kind of a part of the system as well. Like you can't get out of it either.
I think what it was is that I felt like people were being more manipulated by him. Like he was so much more charming than that character came across to me in previous iterations, in a way that just really worked. And I mean, a lot of that is credit to Mahershala Ali, of course.
Some of that is just he's
just
awesome.
his
He's just awesome.
That guy is like, he's kind of having one of those moments because we're 7 episodes into True Detective season 3, and it's really good.
He's just great.
And like it's actually just like a masterclass of acting by him is really what it's about, because he's getting to play 3 timelines,
right?
And just the whole show is just he's so good in it.
And he was great in this, and Green Book is so. I'm just happy for the dude. I love watching him. I love watching him on screen.
Yeah.
So
I have to tell you, I didn't actually realize he was in this movie. I just went, because again, I was like so whatever about it, and I just went in to see it, and then like the car door opened, and I was like, "What? Is that Mahershala?
Is that Mahershala? Yeah. What is he doing here?" So Robert Rodriguez, directed this movie, and I actually heard that Cameron kind of stepped away early on in production. And most of what we actually saw on screen is because and accredited to Robert Rodriguez. Now, I can't actually speak on that because I don't know, and it's always tough with movies when they've only been out for a couple weeks to get down to the nitty-gritty of the production details. So, just a quick history on Robert Rodriguez. You guys know about him from his El Mariachi trilogy or series, if you will, which I absolutely adore and love. He started that in 1992. That movie cost $7,000 to make, and it grossed $2 million, which spawned the 2 sequels in Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. From there, he won on Dusk Till Dawn, Sin City, the Spy Kids films. We're all pretty familiar with Robert Rodriguez. That being said, he hasn't been on people's tongues a lot lately. He really hasn't been making a lot of big properties. The El Rey network has been kind of an interesting, like, late night, cable network that sometimes people watch maybe when they're stoned or working at a bar.
A couple of our friends were on that show. Matador?
Matador, yeah.
And that show came and went. Like that network has been just sort of like.
And you're like, what is this? Like, our good friend Johnny Cruz, Christina Ochoa was on there, and that was like they were acting alongside Alfred Molina.
Yeah.
And you're just like, holy
It'll be really interesting, I think, to see now with, again, it's so interesting, and we're going to get into later the critical response versus the fan response to this film, but like the user audience rating of it, it'll be interesting to see if that's going to like drive more people in the direction of El Rey, because they're like, man, like Robert Rodriguez made this surprisingly good film.
If he's doing this, then where else can I find it being awesome?
Where I think Robert Rodriguez is so interesting is that he's a director who has always had enough style in his direction in the movies he's a part of, that you look at what he's done and it's like, sure, the Mexico trilogy, but he also did, Sin City, he also did, The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, he did Planet Terror, Machete, The Faculty, right? He did
The Faculty.
There's
Spy Kids.
There's something interesting about what he does.
Sure.
Like Johnny Depp being blind and a hitman at one point, or like still fighting. There's just something very interesting about the way he films movies. So that's why today on the show we're going to be talking about whether or not we believe Robert Rodriguez is overly sieged, underly sieged, or properly sieged. And I don't know, who wants to hop in first?
Jeez, I think probably realistically at this point I would have to say he's under sieged.
Yeah.
Because in reality, it's funny talking about it now that we think about it, but like the style that he brings to his movies, where all the characters are like cool and there's a gun and a guitar case.
Right.
It's fucking perfect for Alita.
It
It's
is,
exactly what a manga looks like. It's like all the things that are unnecessarily cool.
Yes.
It's perfect for this movie.
Yeah.
So of course he would work as an action director who can make things like just like shiny and badass and like a little silly, but also totally awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it just the fact that he can make Spy Kids work, and he can also make this work, and he can also make El Mariachi work with no money.
Yeah.
The guy's got to be underrated because he's not considered to be an A-list director by any means at this point.
No, that is true. Yeah, I think I'm leaning on the side of under for sure, because as you say, it's like we're not giving him enough credit for doing something very particular extremely well. And again, you talk about this idea of these like two cool characters and these very silly things, but he does have a way of creating a cohesive style within a film wherein all of that works.
Yeah.
Sin City's like pretty underrated too.
I love
Yeah,
Sin
I
City.
love Sin City.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I also love that there was a lot of lines and moments in this movie that were cliche in the sense of like a person falling in love with a cyborg.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But they were still executed well. Like the shot out in the rain was beautiful. And it was like, I've seen this in Spider-Man, I've seen this in like XYZ, I've seen this like 10 times.
Yeah.
And I know what he's gonna say, I know what you're more human than some humans I've met, but I loved it. It was shot and directed well.
Out of Blade Runner 2049.
It was beautiful. So, I agree. I think I completely agree. Like, I love
the
Rodriguez.
board.
I was going to say this is my favorite movie he's ever done, but it's tough because I really do love Sin City. I love Desperado, honestly. It's like one of my old favorites. So,
Coming up next on the show, Marissa, can you cue the clip of the sex scene from Desperado? I'm just kidding.
as a 12-year-old, I was like, oh my God, what's happening? I was like very uncomfortable.
The most like gratuitous unnecessary
Yes,
sex
totally
scene you've
unnecessary.
ever
What
filmed.
is this? So this is where this gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Critical and box office. Ben and I, and Emma's mentioned it many, many times throughout this episode. So this movie is a flop. It's a flop all the way
Total
across
flop.
the board. It cost $170 million for Fox to make it. It was released 2 weeks ago, February 14th,
A week ago.
a week ago.
week
Excuse
ago.
me, 1 week ago.
February is a short month.
Yes, yes, it is. Domestically, $42 million. Foreign and worldwide, 94 for a grand total of $137 million.
Yeah.
And it only opened, apparently it was number one at the worst President's Day
It
weekend in
was,
history at
yep.
28 million. IMDb gives this a 7.6, which is
Yeah,
great.
That's a very good score.
It's a good score.
Solid, yeah.
All critics give it a 60%. The audience gives it a 93%, and top critics give it a 35. So what the hell, Emma Fyffe, is going on?
I think that a lot of the criticism I was hearing from critics was about the movie being incohesive and too blatantly setting up for a sequel. Now, here's the thing is that a lot of anime, manga, Japanese stories in general, they end in a place where not everything's tied up. So to me, there was a story that was told. The main villain in it was arguably it was Vector and then a little bit Grishka. Great, we dealt with both of them in the course of this movie. Yes, there's other problems that are still clearly going on in the universe in which Alita exists, but if it ends with her basically being like, I know you're up there, Nova, and okay, well, we can assume, yeah, sure, she's going to spend the rest of her life figuring out how to get up there and deal with him.
We don't
That
criticize.
We don't necessarily need to see it.
We don't criticize Star Wars: A New Hope because it
No!
obviously sets up for Empire Strikes Back.
Correct!
Like it's just stupid criticism.
yeah, you
People-
can't not like A New Hope because you're like, I know Empire's coming.
The number of people
Yeah.
that said that they didn't like Infinity War because it ended on a downer, unresolved. It's like you're an idiot. This is first of all, this is the 19th movie in a 20 like,
Right.
but not even
and
that.
even at the end of Infinity War, like I even understand a little bit of the complaint there because it's like it's so open ended and all these heroes are dead and you know they're this movie is complete.
Yes.
It's a complete film.
Yeah.
You don't need to see her go fight. No, like you're saying, that everything happens. You get the love story and it's a sad story. You get the
It's a sad
bad
story.
guy dying. You get like all
You
these
get
things
the
happen.
really great father-daughter story
Yes.
between her
Yeah.
and Dr. Ito.
Awesome.
If there's never another movie, it will be a complete story. Now, that being said, this is the other thing we're going to talk about, buying and selling of Alita as a franchise.
Before we do that, I want to
Yeah.
kind of point this out to everybody because some of you guys listening and watching, basically, Emma, you don't do any written critique, right? You're not an accredited.
No, I'm not.
So none of the three of us are influencing that number on Rotten
No, we're
Tomatoes. But we're all basically we are one step removed from that number. And
Sure.
on any given day, one of us could get a gig that would put us on that radar.
Absolutely.
Because we're all seeing these movies early. We're all reviewing them. I mean, that's what we do. That means 35%, which means that 15% of top critics, 15% of that half, decided this movie was bad. It's 15% less than half, right? If it was down the middle, 50% giving it a good score, 50% giving it a bad score, that's us. That's just the three of us.
Yeah.
It would be a 50% movie.
Yeah.
That means that 15% lower than that number thought this movie sucked and gave it a thumbs down, which is unbelievable considering 93%. It's also us. We're the
Yes,
fucking
exactly.
audience.
Yeah,
We're
like,
the audience.
We're the audience.
And
we're
then
we're in
what does
both
this
categories.
say? What does this say about what critics actually are anymore?
I don't.
Because isn't the critic the idea to sell a movie to your audience? And if your audience fucking loves this movie, then why
Yeah.
am I reading what a critic's writing? I want to know what I'm going to enjoy.
It is mind-blowing to me that we basically qualify as both of these two categories, and it's this far apart for people. It's such a divisive movie. So anyway, you mentioned, though, Andrew, buying or selling, James Cameron, sorry, not James Cameron, that was last week, buying or selling the Alita franchise. Do you want to see the rest of this franchise, or don't you? Are you buying or selling?
And do you actually, regardless of whether you do or don't want to, do you think it'll actually happen? And I'll hop in first, and I'll say, I don't think it will.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's going to be a girl with the dragon tattoo situation, where like, how badly I wanted Fincher to direct the whole entire franchise and trilogy or whatever it may have been. I would love to see Rodriguez and Cameron team up for this entire whatever it could be. I just can't imagine it happening.
I have to agree with you. I mean, I personally, if I had the money, I'd be like, yes, more, give it to me.
Here's my money.
Robert Rodriguez, I want to see you direct other adaptations of like anime or manga properties. All I could think watching it was, and I'm so off the Attack on Titan like train. I'm not into that series at all anymore. But like, if Robert Rodriguez did a live action version of it, I would be the first person in line to go see it. I thought this film was just so great and imaginative, and like the world building on it was so cool, and so
cool.
much of Iron City was practical.
Yes, and it was awesome.
It was so beautiful. It's such a bummer, but unless all of a sudden, like next weekend, all of China goes to see this, I unfortunately don't think that we're gonna get any more.
If it makes a lot of money in China, if this movie does really well, maybe. But I think the problem is this movie was accidentally good anyway.
Yeah, it was.
I would have a hard time believing that a sequel would be accidentally as good or better.
Sure.
And to make a sequel work, you're going to spend at least 170, unless they cut the budget because it doesn't make enough money, and they're like, you have to make this for 70, which doesn't work.
No.
Right.
So I can't see a version of this sequel that is good, and
it feels like with Norton being attached, it was like, we got a whole nother movie written. You know, like there's a reason why we need to have you, because it wasn't just like Ed Norton showed up for 20 minutes the last day of filming to get that last shot.
No.
He was in the movie a bunch of times throughout, where it was like he probably committed to a couple weeks of coming in and shooting these scenes where he doesn't say anything. It's like I feel like the promise and the potential is there. Like obviously, like we know James Cameron, he writes. He's got 5 Avatars in the works. I would not be surprised if he has Alita 2's rough draft written.
Sure.
It just feels like there's no way.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe if they had had some Zahelu to this movie.
No.
All right, guys, we're going to keep moving through the show. Next up, we've got favorite line. I'm going to jump in first with my favorite line, only because it was the one you guys referenced earlier, and it stuck with me the whole time. And it's "fuck your mercy."
I mean, is there another answer?
It's the best line. It's so the best line.
It is the most James Cameron line of the whole movie.
Yep.
But like, I am here for it.
And we know you get one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie, and it was just so
it was so
good.
well
It was
used.
so sweet. Like it like totally was an actual fist bump. Drew and I both looked at each other like, this is good.
Yeah.
She's just
It
like
was dope.
hanging out of his body by his eye socket. There's nothing left of her but her. It's just amazing. If you guys have a favorite line, let us know in the chat. And AMA question here: Billy Belford, a big fan of the show, good friend of ours, and he's actually in charge of running.
It's actually Billy Bedford.
It's not. That is not his name. He's in charge of running the Action Industries Facebook page.
Nice.
Billy, thank you so much. Thank you for your question. After Rodriguez and Cameron teamed up for Alita, what Hollywood personalities would you like to see team up next? It could be a producer and director, or a director and actor, just 2 people who have never worked together before.
That's an interesting question.
What do you guys
That is
think?
an interesting question.
Jeez. I think the one that we have been saying on here for a long time, and I'll go with because I think it's a good idea, is that Nick Cage needs to be in a Quentin Tarantino movie.
That's actually what mine was.
We've been saying it for so long that it's like, how do we not have just a meaty, dark role that's been written for Nick Cage, directed by Tarantino, and he wins an Oscar for it, and he's back on the A-list map. And that's like, it's this close, and it should have happened by now. I also would take Nick Cage in a P.T. Anderson movie. Either one.
Yeah, I was going to say PT would be my secondary one. Honestly, for me, that's it. We've said it
Nick
so
Cage,
many times. I want to see Nick Cage. I love Nick Cage. I grew up on Nick Cage. He's such a great actor in so many moments, but not in the last decade. So, go into a great Tarantino movie or a Scorsese movie or something. Do something great.
The chat's going crazy. I don't know if it's because we've talked about it so much, they all agree, or what.
Well, I feel like Nick Cage, because that's the thing about like Tarantino's movies being so stylized, like that Nick Cage is that kind of guy. Like he fits so perfectly. I feel
he
like
could go
into
be his
Tarantino's
weird self in a movie,
style.
and it would shine
definitely.
so well.
I think the other pairing for me that I would love to see would be, I would love to see Christopher Nolan direct Tom Cruise. I would love to see, because
interesting.
the scope of his movies are big enough.
Sure.
And his characters are sort of polished and clean enough that he could kind of get away with Cruise being pretty cruisy, I think, and it would still work.
Yeah.
He wouldn't need Cruise to be like, he just would, like Fincher would need Cruise to kind of go back to the 90s and be like Eyes Wide Shut, like Magnolia Cruise. I don't think Nolan would need that. He could put Cruise in a suit as a little bit of like an Ethan Hunt character in some weird psychological thing.
Yeah.
And I think he could make it work.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that, because
Yeah.
he just needs to work with like really inventive directors who have such a strong vision that they'll overpower what he wants the movie to be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Nolan's one of the few guys I can think of that would just be like, Tom Cruise, I'm big enough
Yeah,
to make
you're
you
gonna
shine.
do the thing that I want you to do.
Do what you used to do and listen to great directors, and don't just be a sub-director on the movie.
Right,
Yeah,
like he listened
definitely.
to PT in Magnolia.
Yeah.
Gets good performance like that.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, this is so weird. I think I came to this because they have both worked with Chris Pine, but I would love to see like Patty Jenkins and J.J. Abrams team up on something.
Oh, that would be
You know?
amazing.
Abrams produces and Patty Jenkins
Yeah,
directs.
directs.
Yes. That would be so sick.
Like a
So
good
sick.
like action sci-fi kind of like.
Maybe they like hire her to do. Wasn't there like in Young Avengers or something a female Iron Man character?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
And maybe you get that, and
Yeah.
then she bring her to the fold.
Oh,
She changes teams. She goes to the MCU. You
Yes.
get Abrams produces. I don't know.
Yeah.
How about Sorkin and Denis Villeneuve?
Ooh.
You know how like Sorkin's written for Danny Boyle?
Yeah.
He's written for Fincher?
You're getting me warm over here.
I like this.
That would be crazy.
I am just so on the Denis Villeneuve train
Oh,
right
me
now.
too.
I just think he's such a wonderful director. Every casting announcement on this Dune movie.
Oh, and everyone got their characters today?
Hyped
Like,
about it anyway, but god damn, I'm so excited.
Dude, Liam Crowley here, big shout to Liam Crowley. He is our PR coordinator for Action Industries. He suggests here Ryan Coogler and Idris Elba.
Oh, I would
wow.
love to
I
see
love
Idris
that.
Elba in a Ryan
That'd be
Coogler
a good one.
movie.
Like
Oh
a
man,
hard-nosed drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have you back on for Dune. I think
Yeah.
Oh
that'd
my
be a
god,
really great
I would
episode.
love to be on for any David Lynch Dune, new Dune.
Yeah.
I am here.
I've never seen the original Dune, to be honest.
Oh my god,
either.
it
I
is
haven't-
like the most. It's so worth watching.
Is it?
Sting, the bad guy?
Yes, he is one
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
bad guys.
yeah. That I do know.
Yeah, he's Fade Ruatha.
That's so great. All right, so that's our AMA question. Honestly, I think that's going to be very close to wrapping it up. Ben, there are 3 action movie categories.
Totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, and ridiculously legitimate. They're kind of like totally ridiculous. Are going to be movies like Con Air, Face Off, Demolition Man. They're real silly. They're super awesome, but like there's not a lot about them that keeps you engaged on a serious level. Totally legitimate are going to be movies like Lone Survivor, Gladiator, The Fugitive. Like they're pretty grounded, pretty dramatic. They don't really make you laugh unintentionally at any point. And then ridiculously legit is the middle category, which is a lot of the movies on this show. Predator, The Rock. They're movies that
Point Break.
Yeah, they've got one, maybe a great character or maybe a great performance or a really good plot. Something that just kind of makes you feel like the movie's pretty legit, but you laugh unintentionally here and there.
I'm going to hop in first, and I'm going to say this movie is going to be our new kind of staple for ridiculously legitimate.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think this movie needs to be ridiculously legitimate. You need to have
Oh,
the
yeah.
silly spider on the wall, but also be like, oh yeah, because I'm in this badass world.
Totally.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, to me, this is the definition of ridiculously legitimate because it works because it is so ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I think if you tried to make this movie take itself any more seriously than it already did, it
Yeah.
would be bad.
Yeah.
Actively bad.
Yeah.
I think it towed that line of not taking itself too seriously, like perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's,
Yeah.
I don't think you could really. I couldn't push it too far in either direction because Totally
No.
Ridiculous doesn't give credit to any of the best parts.
Yeah, it feels like you're taking away from the emotion and the actual stakes in
Yeah.
this. Like I truly thought that by the end of this film, Ito would die.
Yes. Anybody who told me this movie was totally legitimate, I wouldn't trust.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Not at all.
That's very true.
But those are going to be the categories. Next up on the show, we've got one last segment left. It's called The Pitch.
It's a thing that we do on here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm just experiencing all of your
no,
little
we never
things.
tell anyone about it. It's always super weird. I remember
Yeah.
when I did it by myself when we had Mark Andreyko and Ed Newmeyer, the writer of Starship Troopers, on, and they were like, "Who the hell is this guy? Did that guy just growl into the microphone?" Yes, I did.
Ed was like, I was going to bring you in for a film, but
Not anymore.
please move a little further towards the other side of the room. This is where we talk about the movie we're going to do next week on the show. And next week, we may have a special guest, not sure, confirming it now, but we are going to be doing a movie called, what do you got?
Haha, Emma's face after she saw the pitch. And it was actually on screen right when it happened. It was pretty great. It was pretty great. Sorry.
We're doing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We honestly, Drew and I have still not seen this movie, which is funny considering we did an episode of the Action Guys called The Definitive Ranking of All Spider-Man Movies.
Right, and
we
we put
did
this
it just before this came out, so
we
right.
skated
We're
by.
safe.
Emma, though, has seen it.
I
Emma, you want to give us a quick, what do you think? You think people are going to be really excited for this?
Oh my God, Into the Spider-Verse was incredible. I saw it, and I'm sure many people watching at home have. I actually brought up Mark Andreyko. He and I had a conversation about it wherein we were like, we don't ever need to see another live-action superhero movie.
Yeah.
It's the style. Again, one of the things that I think we've been praising Alita for so much is the world of the film and just how like visually engaging it is. Spider-Verse is unbelievable. It is like a comic book come to life. The performances are absolutely outstanding. You're going to be talking about Mahershala again.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he's in it.
Oh, cool.
And so
is Nick Cage.
And Nick Cage is great in it, by the way. It was the perfect usage of Nick
He's
Cage.
coming back.
It's great.
We can't wait.
I think you're gonna love
I'm
it.
super excited.
It's going to win Best Animated Film at the Oscars
it
before we
has
do
to.
the episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're really excited next week to talk about it on the show.
Are the Oscars this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They're on
Jesus.
Yeah,
Sunday.
Sunday.
So, guys, last couple things to talk about. We mentioned Action Industries. I just want to go down a list, give some shout outs to a few names here.
Yeah,
I'm not
please.
going to go too much into every position. We teased a couple positions people are helping us with, but just some names. This is the Action Advisory Board, is what we're calling this. I'm going to give Billy Bedford, just kidding. Billy Belford, Brandon Hanna, Daniel Sala, Emma McAllister, Eric Frederick, Hunter Ray Chambliss, James Spence, Caleb Coho, Liam Crowley, Matt Kearns, Michael Blankenship, Paul Denuza, Richard Eric Jarvie, and Will McLean. That's like John McClane.
Yeah.
That is the Action Advisory Board. All of you fine people are helping us coordinate this new thing on the ground as we develop it.
I was
It'll be-
like, I recognize most of those
Yep.
names from the Schmoes Know Patreon.
They're all amazing, amazing supportive people, as Emma
Yes.
knows, who runs the Patreon.
I
Emma is
do.
also the runner of Patreon. She's also the commissioner of the
Team League and Inner Geekdom.
and Inner Geekdom.
Yeah.
And she also does so much content on her own. Go find
Yeah.
her everywhere online at Emma Fyffe. And
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
You
thanks.
were
This
wonderful.
was a blast. Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah, this was great to have you. So you guys stay tuned. Check out the Collider Podcast Network for our other show this week. We'll talk some more about it there. And without further ado, I think we sign off.
I think we do. All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.